Welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha, a podcast shared by David Roylance. This podcast is dedicated to guiding you to completely eliminate the discontent mind and the suffering it causes by attaining enlightenment. Learn and practice the teachings of Gotama Buddha that will guide you to fully attain a peaceful, calm, serene, and content mind with joy. To support this podcast, visit patreon.com/supportbuddha or visit buddhadailywisdom.com, where you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online learning resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Now, here's our teacher to share more.
Sawadee Kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today we're our group learning program and we're studying chapter 20, which is titled Animal to Human, the Evolution of Our Consciousness. This is chapter 20 in the book Developing a Life Practice, the Path that Leads to Enlightenment. This is where you start learning about the cycle of rebirth and specifically the individual realms of existence. This is where you start to understand what are the 5 realms and how our mind moves from these animal consciousness into the human realm. That the mind can be conditioned in our previous animal existences, and when we come into the human realm, the unenlightened mind functions very much like an animal. We are in the human realm, but the consciousness itself, having experienced so many rebirths in the animal realm, we tend to function very much like an animal, even though we're in the human realm. So this unenlightened mind is having these certain animal instincts, and because of this, then the mind is causing certain challenges and difficulties for us as we struggle through the various relationships and things that we encounter on a day-to-day basis. So understanding this evolution of the mind from the animal realm to the human realm, it can help you identify certain aspects of what you might be doing that are more animalistic, and then you can purge those from your practice. And it helps you to understand this path to enlightenment, that you're essentially becoming a better and better human being. So by understanding animal existence and all the other realms as well, and understanding how we move into the human realm, then you can start to better understand the work that you're doing in the human realm in order to move the mind to enlightenment. So I'd like to welcome all of you guys, and I apologize for the technical glitch that we had there for a moment, but it looks like we have everything back up and running now. As we go forward in our class, I'll be sharing some different things with you that are in the chapter, but there are certain things that aren't in the chapter that I'm going to be sharing with you today. So a combination of reading the chapter and attending the class is really helpful with all of these chapters, including this one, because there are certain things that I'm going to share today that aren't actually in the book, but there are certain things in the book that I won't be sharing in the class. So a combination of both of these are going to really help you to understand the full content and be able to glean the most benefit out of this particular chapter. As we go forward, I will pause at different times, opening up for any questions that you guys might have. You can put those into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions or follow-up questions that you have directly. So first, let's just talk about the problems with the consciousness that we've been discussing as part of the entire program, but now we can discuss it as it relates specifically to the animal realm and moving the mind to the human realm in this evolution of our consciousness. Back in chapter 8 and at different times during our program, I've been sharing with you about craving, anger, and ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality. This is also sometimes referred to as greed, hatred, and delusion. These are the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or the 3 fires. This is the pollutions that are in the mind at a high level. Essentially what the unenlightened mind is doing, and you'll see this in the animal realm as well, because animals are unenlightened, is that there's this craving, there's this desire, there's this longing and yearning, there's wanting the objects of your affection, where the mind is just chasing after the next new shiny object around the corner, thinking that this is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. The mind in the unenlightened state thinks that things should be permanent. So we want things to be permanently pleasing to us. And when we have certain cravings, there are certain things that we see as agreeable to us, and we want these things. And when we get these things, we get pleasant feelings. But then because of that craving, there's also certain things that we don't want and that we don't like. And when those things aren't happening for us, then we're not getting our craving fulfilled. We're not getting that permanence that the mind desires and craves for, and therefore it experiences these painful feelings. And when the mind is doing that and it's moving into the painful feelings, that's where the anger can arise. The mind's hostility and bitterness and aggression towards others, because what the mind's doing in the unenlightened state is it's falsely believing and having the misperception that this anger that is arising is being caused by this person or this situation, when in reality what's really causing the anger is the craving. That when you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, euphoria, exhilaration. But then because those feelings of happiness are based on some condition, that condition is impermanent. And now, because of the impermanent nature of that condition, your feelings are also going to be impermanent. The happiness, excitement, elation is impermanent. So now when the mind doesn't get what it wants, it moves to this anger. And this is where we sometimes push people out of our life, either overtly, this is called aversion, where we push people away, and then we can also become bitter and harsh or hostile and aggressive through our speech and our actions, or we might put expectations on people and try to control them to do things our way. And in the unenlightened state, we think that this is going to solve the problem because we falsely believe, we have the misunderstanding, the misperception that this anger that you're experiencing or this painful feelings that you experience are coming from this outside thing. So the unenlightened mind, with a lack of wisdom, thinks that if I push this person out of my life, that solves the problem. But the thing is that you just get angry about the next thing. Or we might feel justified in our bitterness and harshness and hostility towards this person or towards the situation, when in reality this person hasn't caused you to be angry. Instead, it's been your craving, desire, attachment. Or we put our expectations on people and then they feel pressured and they leave out of our life. So because of this, the unenlightened mind can't live harmoniously with all beings because it's constantly struggling through its own cravings, and it can only feel comfortable when it gets its cravings fulfilled. And when it doesn't get its cravings fulfilled, then it resorts to this anger, and then there can be certain moral conduct, either pushing people away, being bitter and harsh and hostile, or having expectations that we put on people. And in the animal realm, when the animal gets angry, it's going to show its teeth, it's going to growl, it's going to fight, it's going to try to fear this other animal into doing what it wants. So a lion who's not getting its craving fulfilled, maybe it has a certain territory, and now another lion comes into its territory, and because of its craving, its selfishness, it wants this territory for itself. And now when something's happening that this lion doesn't want to happen, its craving isn't getting fulfilled, that it has this permanent space all to itself, now that anger, when it arises in the animal realm, they're going to show their teeth, they're going to growl, they're going to roar, they're going to show their claws, and they're going to try to fear this other lion into getting away from here. And this is what we're also doing in the unenlightened state, that we become bitter and harsh and hostile and aggressive towards others, thinking that that way we're going to get what we want. And this is from our animalistic instincts. And where all of this is coming from is this ignorance or this misunderstanding or this confusion, that the unenlightened mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. With these pollutions in there, the craving, anger, and ignorance permeating in the mind, we make selfish decisions through our craving. We just want things to be permanently pleasing to us. And then when we don't get it, we get angry and we be bitter and harsh and we growl and we roar, right? We do it with our own words in the human realm, but essentially that's what we're doing in the human realm, is we're doing the same things that we did in the animal realm. We're now just doing it through a human voice. So this is all happening because of the ignorance. We refer to these as the three poisons, or the three unwholesome roots, or the three fires. And what you're working to do on this path is transform this so that you're no longer functioning through craving, anger, and ignorance, these three unwholesome roots. Because as long as you're making unwise decisions and you're making decisions through these unwholesome roots, you're then going to experience unwholesome results. But when you can identify what your mind's doing and you can see it and you can observe it and you can transform it through training, now you can transform your mind and not function through this craving, anger, and ignorance, but instead function through the three wholesome roots of generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. But it takes time to do that. It's a gradual transformation. It's not something that you can do immediately. It takes a gradual training to gradually get rid of these pollutions and bring in the wholesome qualities of generosity, loving kindness, and wisdom. So this is the problem in the unenlightened mind, and it's coming from our animal existences, that even though we're in the human realm, the mind has had so many countless animal existences that it functions very much like an animal, even though we're in the human realm. Then there's this personal existence view and conceit, which we talked about in chapter 16. This is what we refer to as the ego, where the personal existence view, what this pollution is this is where the mind thinks that this body or this mind is you. There's a certain self-image or a certain self-identity that the mind is clinging to, thinking that this is who you are, and you protect it. And now when somebody says something agreeable, you get pleasant feelings. But when somebody says something disagreeable about your self-image or self-identity, now you end up getting painful feelings. And once again, you might roar or growl or be bitter and harsh towards somebody because it's triggering that pollution of your mind where you have a certain self-image or a certain self-identity that you're trying to cling to. And now when somebody says something or does something that is disagreeable to you, you might be bitter and harsh and hostile and growl and roar towards them. And then there's a certain amount of conceit that's in the unenlightened mind. This is the arrogance, the pride, the measuring and comparing, putting yourself above people or putting yourself below people. Whereas if you put yourself above people and you talk down to them, this is going to cause challenges and difficulties in your life. But if you're also putting yourself below people, thinking that you're unworthy or that people are so far above you, you can be shaken up and uncalm in those situations. And where these are coming from is also our animal existences. That as a deer, when we're out in the field, we need to be aware of this body and this personal existence. We need to be on guard to be aware if there's any predators coming after us, because we're a prey animal. So we need to have clear understanding of this personal existence view. We're very fearful. We're looking out for enemies. We're doing that in the animal realm, but we're also doing that in the human realm, that we oftentimes, because of this personal existence view, we're looking out for enemies around us. When are they going to say something that's going to trigger this personal existence view, this self-image or this self-identity that you're holding on to? You're kind of looking out for when is somebody going to say something or do something that infringes on your self-image or self-identity, and now it gives you justification to be bitter and harsh and growl and roar at them. In this conceit where the mind is judging others and putting yourself above or below, it's the same thing in the animal realm. In fact, in the animal realm, not only do we need personal existence view for survival, but we need this conceit in the animal realm for our own survival. Without the conceit in the animal realm, we wouldn't be able to survive. Because when we were all a pack of wolves, we needed to know who's the alpha male and who's the alpha female, because they're the ones who are breeding, they're the ones who are hunting, they're the ones who are teaching us how to hunt, and they're teaching us how to survive. So we need to know who are the alpha male and alpha female in our wolf pack, because we need to follow them and do everything that they're showing us how to do. And the same thing when we were a herd of elephants. We needed to know who's the matriarch of our elephant herd. We needed to watch her. We needed to follow her, because she's going to take us to the watering holes. She's going to show us where the food is. She's going to show us where our migration paths are. Based on the weather, we need to migrate to certain places in the world that's different from one season to the other. So in the animal realm, we need to know who's above us and who's below us. Without this, we wouldn't actually survive. And without personal existence view, we wouldn't be able to survive. But the challenge is that we come into our human existence with this craving and anger and ignorance. We have this personal existence view, this conceit that starts to develop, and our mind continues to start to function like an animal. And this hinders us from being able to live harmoniously with all beings. So our current life and our previous lives conditioned the mind to start functioning this way, even though we're in this human realm. And this constant cycle of rebirth makes it continuously difficult for us because we keep experiencing this sickness, aging, and death over and over and over and over and over again in all these realms. And now our mind gets conditioned to function in this way. And it's just hindering us. And what we're doing on this path to enlightenment is we're training our mind to be able to identify these animalistic behaviors that are coming up in the mind so that now we can function more and more like a human being. Because in the animal realm, we tend to eat and we're looking out for our survival through eating. And then sometimes we have to kill in order to do that. We're stealing food from others. We are having sexual misconduct and having sex with lots of different, and we tend to do these same types of things in the human realm, even though we're human, because our mind is conditioned from these animal existences. But we can evolve beyond this when we understand what a human being is going to function like more and more. So what the Buddha is teaching us is these natural laws of existence, and he's helping us to see how we can cultivate wisdom to function as a better and better human being. And what I'm going to be sharing with you is the 5 realms of existence so that you can understand existence in each one of these realms, because there's certain qualities of mind that we develop in these other realms that come with us into this human realm. And now what we would like to do is we'd like to purge that from our mind and start to become a better and better human being. So now I'll share with you guys the 5 realms of existence and what each one of these realms are and what we experience in all of those realms. And you might see some of these certain qualities from these other realms that you're experiencing even here in the human realm. So let's take the first one, for example, which is the heavenly realm. And then, of course, there's the human realm, the afflicted spirit realm, the animal realm, and the hell realm. And we'll go through all 5 of these. In the heavenly realm, this is not a permanent existence. Oftentimes we're taught that the heavenly realm is a permanent existence, that we only get one life and then we die and then we permanently go to heaven or we permanently go to hell. None of these realms are a permanent existence. All these beings are stuck in the cycle of rebirth, and they all need to get out in order to experience the peace and the joy and to eliminate this constant cycle of birth, which leads to sickness, aging, and death. As long as we're in one of these realms, we're in existence and we're continuing to experience discontentedness. But by training the mind, you can escape all of this constant rebirth and get out of this cycle of rebirth. The heavenly realm is not permanent, just like the hell realm is not permanent. And nobody's sending you to these specific realms. There's no being that's deciding which realm you go to. Instead, it's the results of your decisions. It's craving, desire, attachment that is the fuel that causes rebirth. That's what determines if there is rebirth. But then what realm you're born into and what condition you are when you're in that realm is based on the results of your decisions, of your karma, the cause and effect. So this craving, desire, attachment, not only is it causing discontentedness in the mind, it's causing the continuous rebirth as well. It's like the fuel that's causing it. And some people have been taught through Christian teachings that we only have one life and that the realm of heaven is permanent and that the realm of hell is permanent and that God is sending us to one of these places. But if you look around the world around you, what can you find that is permanent? Can you find anything that's permanent? If you understand the universal truth of impermanence, then you understand that none of these things around us are permanent. So why would the heavenly realm or the hell realm be permanent? We're also often taught that we only get one life, and we oftentimes learn this through Jesus Christ's teachings or Prophet Muhammad's teachings. But when you look at Jesus Christ's teachings, what you come to understand is that Jesus Christ also taught the cycle of rebirth. That when he said, I will come again, this is saying, I will be reborn again. The history tells us that at one time, Christian teachings did have the cycle of rebirth as part of the Christian teachings. But at 543 AD, there was a king who wanted the cycle of rebirth to be taken out of the Christian teachings. And at that time, it was the Catholic Church or the Pope that was the main church that had the Christian teachings. So this king was putting a lot of pressure on the Pope, wanting him to take the cycle of rebirth out of Christian teachings, and he wouldn't do it. So the king put the Pope into jail. And now, after being in jail and having certain treatment, the Pope eventually relented after 2 years and decided to take the cycle of rebirth out of Christian teachings. But he still left one thing in, where Jesus said, I will come again. This is, I will be reborn. You can go back and search on the internet and in books and encyclopedias, and you can see during this period of time in 543 AD that there's this king that jailed this Pope in order to get the cycle of rebirth taken out of Christian teachings. And we were taught that we only have one life. But what you can understand, as what I'm going to share with you today, is that there is this cycle of rebirth in place, and you can see that it's true through what I'm sharing with you here about how your mind in the human realm, in the unenlightened state, functions very much like an animal. Human beings are not an animal, but we oftentimes function like animals because of the conditioning from our previous lives. And I'm going to be sharing with you other things to help you see a bit more clearly that this cycle of rebirth is true. This isn't typically where a brand new student will start to learn the cycle of rebirth. This is about 6 months into this group learning program, but I introduce it to you here as a way to help you start to understand it. And then when we really go into it is in volume 11 of this book series, which by that point a student is usually having studied with me for about 2 years. And that's a better time to really look at the cycle of rebirth, because what's happened in the past is in the past. It really doesn't matter. And what's happened in the future is in the future. It's going to happen in the future. What really matters is right now, the present moment. So as I've shared with you on other things that I've talked about, is you should never believe anything that I share. There's no belief in the teachings of the Buddha. But as I'm sharing with you today about the cycle of rebirth, and you're starting to reflect on that, you can see more and more clearly in the truth that your mind does in this human realm function very much like an animal in the unenlightened state. And as you train your mind, it becomes more and more human, and you'll start seeing improved qualities of mind. Some of the qualities that we talk about in these 5 realms are going to be observant to you in the human realm because you've already existed in these other realms of existence. And now, even though you're in the human realm, your mind might have some of these qualities. So let me go into the heavenly realm and talk about this. In the heavenly realm, as I mentioned, it's not a permanent existence. Beings from the heavenly realm can be reborn into the lower realms. And I know a lot of you guys have studied Christian teachings. If you guys study Christian teachings, when they talk about Satan, that's exactly what happened to Satan, right? He was in the heavenly realm and he got kicked out and he went down and created hell according to Christian teachings, right? So you can see that the Buddhist teachings actually match up to Christian teachings as well. But oftentimes the Christian teachings are based in belief, where here you can independently verify that the heavenly realm is not permanent, because when you look around the world, you can see the universal truth of impermanence, that there isn't anything that is permanent around you. The beings in the heavenly realm are experiencing exclusively pleasant feelings, that happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, euphoria, those conditioned pleasant feelings. They don't experience painful feelings or feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. They can cultivate their consciousness in the heavenly realm, but oftentimes they lack motivation to be able to get to enlightenment. So while they have the ability to attain enlightenment in the heavenly realm and escape the cycle of rebirth, they oftentimes are complacent and they lack motivation because they're only experiencing pleasant feelings. So you can have beings that are reborn from the heavenly realm back down into the human realm, or even into the afflicted spirits, animal realm, or hell realm. This is if you or you know people around you that when they were born into this world, they're very cheerful, very somewhat, fairly polite and kind and friendly, and they just seem to be more bubbly and more bright. This is oftentimes beings that have come from the heavenly realm, that they don't really have much defilement or much anger, hostility in their mind, because they're coming out of the heavenly realm and they're being reborn into the human realm for another opportunity to get to enlightenment. So beings from the heavenly realm can be reborn into the human realm or into these other realms as well. In the human realm, we experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. We can cultivate our consciousness to attain enlightenment in the human realm, just like in the heavenly realm, and we tend to have more motivation in order to get to enlightenment because we experience all three types of feelings. Those painful feelings and the neither painful nor pleasant feelings tend to motivate us and encourage us to be interested in even getting to enlightenment. Where in the heavenly realm, because they're only experiencing exclusively pleasant feelings, they tend to lack motivation. But here, when we experience the sadness and the anger, the frustration, irritation, annoyance, the guilt, the shame, the fear, the stress, the anxiety, and all of these other discontent feelings, these tend to motivate us to get to enlightenment and look for something that can help us eliminate these feelings. So essentially, the human existence is the ideal existence because we can cultivate our consciousness and we have the ability to cultivate the consciousness, and we tend to have the motivation to do it. We experience all three feelings like pleasant, painful, neither painful nor pleasant. But in the heavenly realm, while some people have been taught that that's the ultimate goal of life, in that heavenly realm, those beings are still experiencing existence. They're still in the cycle of rebirth. They're still experiencing discontentedness, and they need to get out of the cycle of rebirth, and they tend to lack motivation to do so. So they're oftentimes reborn into the other realms, even down into the lower realms. So the goal of this path isn't to have a life that's completely perfect, and then when you get to the end of this life, you're going to reside in heaven permanently. That's not the truth. Because of the universal truth of impermanence, we can see that the heavenly realm is not permanent, and you're still in existence. And then if we're reborn out of either of these realms, we can actually be reborn into the lower realms, which here, once you're into the lower realms, it's like being in a prison. You can ultimately get back out of the lower realms, but once you're in the lower realms, there needs to be continuous, multiple, countless rebirths before we ever get back into the human or heavenly realms with an opportunity to get to enlightenment. So that's why now that you're in the human realm, it's the ideal existence to be able to make your way to enlightenment. And it's important not to allow this existence to go to waste, that you apply determination, dedication, and diligence to get to enlightenment while you have this ideal existence and the potential and the ability to do it. And you have that built-in motivation of the painful feelings. Because once we're down into these lower realms, we don't have any opportunity from those realms to get to enlightenment. We're going to need to experience countless rebirths to get back to the human realm again, to be able to then once again experience the potential of getting to enlightenment. The afflicted spirits realm, sometimes this is referred to as hungry ghost or ghost. This is where in this realm, beings experience painful feelings and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. They can't cultivate their consciousness enough to attain enlightenment, and they tend to have extensive amounts of craving, desire, attachment to either people, places, or possessions. So if somebody's been in the human realm and they have a lot of craving for their house, for example, and they're holding on to their house very tightly, they might be reborn from that human realm into the afflicted spirits realm, which is what some people refer to as a ghost, and now they're present at that home, but they're no longer in the form realm of a human. They no longer have physical form. They're in what's called a formless realm. They now don't have physical form, but they're in existence, and now they're holding on to this house, or they might be holding on to the people in their family or certain places or possessions. Maybe if there's a war, they might be in that area where they died, or if they have a certain person who they were really attached to with lots of craving, they might be holding on to that person and spending a lot of time around that person. So because of their craving to people, places, and possessions, they tend to hang around in this afflicted spirit realm or this ghost realm, and they still need to get out of this cycle of rebirth. They haven't yet attained enlightenment and they need to get back to an improved existence before they have an opportunity to get to enlightenment. Then there's this animal realm, which you guys are probably familiar with if you've been around animals. This is another form realm where they have physical form. Animals experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. They can't cultivate their consciousness enough to get to enlightenment, and they don't really have the motivation to be able to get to enlightenment because they're operating on these basic survival instincts. As I mentioned, they're oftentimes killing, stealing, having sexual misconduct, and this is how they actually survive. A lot of animals can't survive unless they're killing, or unless they're stealing, or unless they're having lots of sex to multiply and produce more and more beings in that particular existence. So in the animal realm, they're really struggling with being able to train their mind because they don't have the capability to do that. If an animal is off on its own, it's going to be wild. Nowadays, we have a lot of animals that are living side by side with human beings, and animals are getting to cultivate their consciousness with the help of human beings. We have them as pets, or we might have them on a farm to work with us. So human beings are tending to train animals more and more, where 50,000 years ago, this didn't exist. Of course, the Buddha didn't live back during that time, but as human beings existed, there was a lot of separation between animals and humans. But over time, animals and humans have come closer and closer together due to our fascination with animals. Because of our previous existences, we tend to be very fascinated with the animal realm, and we've brought animals in closer and closer and closer to us, to the point where they're actually living with us side by side in our homes now. And they're starting to get benefit from that they're starting to get a lot of training and development, and they're able to cultivate their consciousness to a certain degree, but they're not able to cultivate it to the point of getting to enlightenment. And what scientists tell us about the animal realm is that 99% of the animals that once existed in the world are no longer in existence. There's only 1% of the animals that once existed are currently still in existence. So we've seen this implosion or this shrinking down of the animal realm. And at the same time, what we're seeing is this expansion in the human realm. The human population has been growing and growing and growing. We're up to 8 billion people right now. And this is due to the decreasing of the animal realm. As the animal realm has been shrinking, the human realm has been expanding. And with animals learning more and more closely with humans, it's helping them to cultivate their consciousness to have a better and better ability to move up to the human realm. And that's why we're seeing this movement of animals from the animal realm coming up into the human realm. But then that's also why our human realm is becoming more and more difficult, more and more challenging, more misery, more discontentedness, more controlling. There's a lot of difficulties in the human realm that we experience on a daily basis because a lot of us are coming out of this animal existences into this human realm, and now we're functioning like animals in this human realm. So these animals need to eventually get to a human birth or a heavenly birth in order to experience the ability to get to enlightenment, because they can't actually cultivate their mind enough to get to enlightenment from the animal realm. Then there's beings in the hell realm, which these beings experience only painful feelings, and they can't cultivate their consciousness to be able to get to enlightenment. But they can improve it a bit in order to move up into the other realms, but they can't cultivate the consciousness enough to actually get to enlightenment. The beings in the hell realm, they have extensive amounts of craving, desire, attachment, anger, hatred, and ill will, as well as ignorance, delusion, and unknowing of true reality. These beings are experiencing exclusively painful feelings, and their lifespan is very long. In addition to the heavenly realm has a very long lifespan comparative to the human realm, where the animal realm, they tend to have a shorter lifespan because they tend to be killing a lot. So when you're doing a lot of killing, you'll tend to have a shorter lifespan. So the heavenly realm, the afflicted spirit realm, and the hell realm, these realms are the formless realms where there's no physical form. The human realm and the animal realm, these are the form realms where we actually have physical form. And beings are moving in and out of these realms throughout time. In these particular realms, they're not somewhere else. Oftentimes we envision the heavenly realm as being far, far, far away off in the sky somewhere, or we envision the hell realm being buried deep down in the earth somewhere. These realms, while we call them realms and the perception is that they must be separate and really far away from each other, all of these beings are interacting on the same plane. We're all in the same time and space. So just like right now, there's a human being sitting in this chair, and I'm talking to you by sitting in this chair. When this human being gets up and walks away, an animal can come and sit in this chair. There could be an ant. There could potentially be some other animal, maybe a gecko. We don't have any cats or dogs in the house, but who knows? Maybe a cat or dog or bird could come into the house and get in here, and they could maybe sit in this chair too. So just like animals and humans are all in the same time and space, these heavenly beings, these afflicted spirits, and these hell beings, they're all in the same plane. They're all here intermingling with human beings. And this is why some humans can actually see formless beings. Even though they don't have physical form, there's some humans that can see heavenly beings or afflicted spirits, which are ghosts, or even hell beings. And you can even get to the point where there's communication between you and these other beings. There's some humans that can experience communication from beings in the heavenly realm, or the afflicted spirits realm, or the hell realm. Just like you can interact with your dog or cat or any other animal, and you can interact with them vocally and verbally, and you can understand what they're experiencing. It's the same thing with the heavenly realm, afflicted spirit realm, and hell realm. These beings have the ability to communicate with us, even though they're a formless realm and we're in a form realm. All these beings can be communicating with each other. And as you're training your mind and you're eliminating more and more pollution, this is more and more of a potential that these beings can communicate with you. And this is one of the reasons why it's helpful at this stage in your learning to start understanding some of these realms. Because if you start getting communication from these realms, or if you start seeing some of these formless beings, you might be shaken up by it. You might have a certain amount of fear, or you might even think you're going crazy if you see some of these formless beings, or if you start getting communication from these beings from other realms. Because as you're training your mind with the teachings of the Buddha and you're lifting that pollution, these things are potential options that could happen. But if these things are happening, you don't have to be scared. You don't have to be worried. These things are normal. You're always welcome to reach out to me for help, and I can help you process whatever you're experiencing. But just know that this is normal. That if you're hearing beings from the heavenly realm or the afflicted spirit realm or the hell realm, this is completely normal. And just like if somebody was talking to you and you might decide to ignore them and not pay attention to them, you can choose to do that and ignore them. Or if you decide you need to talk to them, then go ahead and talk to them. But don't feel like you need to be scared of these beings or that you need to be fearful in any way. And understand that you might sometimes see them as well. This is all completely normal. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions related to anything that I've shared so far. You can put this into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions or follow-up questions that you like. I see, Marcy, you have your hand up. If you'd like to ask a question, go ahead.
Thank you, Teacher David. So in my past, I have worked with people that suffer from schizophrenia. And a lot of those patients would express being spoken to by, beings or people of other things. Sometimes it was, people that had passed or whatever. Would those people, even though, I wouldn't even know if they were on the path to enlightenment or not, but could they be suffering from connection with these realms? Could that be a source of the voices that they hear and the stuff that they talk and the people they talk to?
Exactly. Right now, there's people in the world that are thinking this is a mental illness, that this person is hearing voices and there's something mentally wrong with them, and they're giving medications in order to subdue the mind so that they no longer hear those voices. But oftentimes, even with that, the voices are still coming through. And this is because people aren't understanding these 5 realms of existence, and that this is completely normal to hear beings in other realms. But because this wisdom isn't pervasive in the world, there's people who have come up with this approach and think that this person is now mentally ill let's label them as schizophrenic, let's give them some medications, and then that's going to solve the problem. But if you understand these realms of existence and what's really happening is these beings really are truly communicating and coming through, you can teach somebody that is labeled as being schizophrenic that this is completely normal and teach them how to stabilize their mind and that they don't need to pay attention to these voices. So there's actually people who are students of mine who are schizophrenic that I help with this. There's people who are bipolar or have major depression or ADHD and all these things. This is actually a chapter that we're going to be discussing in 2 weeks. It's chapter 22. We're going to be going through a lot of the mental health things that in certain communities are being labeled as mental illnesses, when in reality there's a clear connection to what the Buddha taught, and we can explain it and understand it through the teachings of the Buddha. So schizophrenia, while these people are challenged with certain aspects of their mind, what's happening is that their mind is more open to being able to receive communication from these beings, but because they're told that they're sick and they're ill and they're crazy, they're taking on that, and that's what they think, and then sometimes they might act upon those voices. But there's a way to train your mind to get beyond that, where your mind is no longer being influenced by these beings in these other realms, and you just look at it as it's just like a human being trying to talk to you and say, hey, go beat up that boy, or hey, go kick that guy in the shins. Well, if a human being told you that, you'd be like, no, I'm not going to go do that. But because individuals are being taught that these are illnesses and these kinds of things, oftentimes they're influenced and they're feeling maybe insane or they're feeling crazy because of this, but it's just completely normal. But there's a way to train the mind to move beyond that, so it's no longer influenced from the beings in the other realms.
And I have one more question, Teacher David. So I remember I had spoken to you at one point. I had a brother that was murdered, and during a meditation session, I kind of had like his image in his face kind of like shout out at me. And from that point on, it was like I understood he couldn't hurt me. It was whatever. But now I feel like as I've, my meditation practice has picked up a great deal and I'm spending more time meditating, he seems to be visiting again. But I feel this very, it's almost like a very angry, hostile feeling with him. So my question to you is, at this point in time, I have been putting in my loving kindness meditation for all my siblings. Should I now start to really focus in just on Mitchell because of those? I guess I would say it feels very hostile, very, a lot of anger and hatred there.
If those are things that are in your mind and you're having anger and hatred towards him, then yes, by you putting him in your loving kindness meditation, it's going to transform your mind. But if he's angry and hostile, you can't transform his mind through your meditation. So it's all about what's going on in your mind of whether you should include them in your meditation or not.
Understood. Okay. Thank you, Teacher David. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Looks like Chrissy, you have your hand up.
I do. Thank you, sir. I'm going to try to ask this question. It's not actually my question, but if someone is seeing a afflicted spirit as in the form of how they were in the human realm, how would you explain this, sir?
So are you saying like there's a human being that's in the human realm now that's seeing an afflicted spirit?
A being that's in the human realm now that sees an afflicted spirit who once was in the human realm, now in the afflicted spirits, but that appears as they did when they were in the human realm. So like a animal or a grandmother who has passed on, but now they see in that same appearance that appears the same, not in a different form.
I see. So like maybe right now your grandmother has died and now you're seeing her in the afflicted spirit realm as a ghost. So what's happening here is grandma's still holding on, right? Grandma's still attached. She's having that craving, desire, attachment, and she needs to let go. So you can just talk to her as if she's a human. You can just be like, Grandma, it's okay. You can go now, right? Because you need to help Grandma potentially to get rid of her craving, desire, attachment. Because her mind's holding on and she lacks wisdom, she's just holding on and holding on and holding on. So you can let her know, like, it's okay. You can go on, just move on. Because as long as they have the craving, desire, attachment, they're kind of stuck in that afflicted spirits realm. They're not going to be able to get to a next existence until they let go of their cravings, desires, attachments. So the ideal thing would be that Grandma lets go and she's either reborn into the human realm or the heavenly realm, where then she has an opportunity to get to enlightenment. But if she keeps holding on, she's going to be stuck in that afflicted spirits realm. So I would just talk to her when you know that she's around, or even if you're not sure if she's around, and just let her know that she can move on, and that you love her, and that she's now no longer human, and that she should move on to the next realm and experience rebirth so that she can get to enlightenment.
That was me.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying that when somebody passes on and the afflicted spirit realm, you're not reborn into that afflicted spirit realm?
Yeah, so if a person is in the human realm and then they die and now they become an afflicted spirit, they're being reborn into that afflicted spirit realm, and it's a new existence for them. But in this existence, they're still in existence, and they need to escape the existence, and they need to move on to another existence beyond the afflicted spirit realm, because otherwise they're just going to stay stuck in that existence. They need to get back to another human existence or a heavenly existence to be able to get to enlightenment. And that's how they can escape this whole cycle of rebirth. As long as they're in that afflicted spirit's realm, they're not able to cultivate their mind enough to get to enlightenment and escape the whole cycle of rebirth.
So like in my experience, when they're reborn into that afflicted, they are the same individual, I'll say, as they were in the human realm, even the animal realm.
They're not the same exact individual. We call it the cycle of rebirth, but a better way to understand it is the cycle of new existence. The word in the original text of the teachings of the Buddha, it's a Pali word. It's called samsara. You might see this if you study the teachings of the Buddha. They talk about samsara. They're translating this over to the cycle of rebirth, and I still use this when I talk about it so people know that what I'm talking about is this cycle of rebirth. But when you see me write about it in volume 1, at the point where I start writing about it in the frequently asked questions section of volume 1, I explain what samsara is, but then I help people understand that there's nothing that's truly being reborn. It's actually a new existence each time. So let's say Grandma, person A, there's a certain cardboard box, and this cardboard box has a certain size, a certain shape, a certain texture. And now when cardboard box A is done, or person A is done, there's a new cardboard box. There's a new mind and a new body. Let's just say human to human, to keep it simple. If it goes from human to human, there's a completely new mind and a completely new body in this new existence. What moves from one existence to the next is the cravings, which is the mental longing and strong eagerness, and residual memories move from one existence to the next. But it's literally like there's a cardboard box A, the contents get picked up and get put into this new cardboard box B. So Grandma could now be a male in another life, and it's a completely new mind and a completely new body. And this helps you to understand that it's a completely new existence. So just like it's a new existence from human to human, if someone's being reborn from the human realm into the afflicted spirits realm, they are a completely new existence. It's not the same being. Although that being may think that they're the same being, it's a completely new being. It's a completely new existence.
So why would they look the same and feel the same, I guess?
Yeah, because of their craving, they're still holding on. So they're still clinging to that. But it is a completely new being. It's a formless being now with a new mind. But that mind has cravings from their previous life, and it has residual memories from their previous life. So it can take on the formless appearance as if they are from their previous life, but that's just their cravings and residual memories that they're still holding on to.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see, we have a question here from Max, it looks like. In a world where everyone tries to impose a hierarchy, how does one live with equanimity? For example, having multi-layer of bosses as well as political officials such as police officers and presidents. So what you would ultimately like to get to, Max, is when you're eliminating personal existence view and conceit, that you view everybody as equal, even though other people aren't going to view it that way because of their mind having personal existence view and conceit. They might see themselves as above you, but in your mind, you would like to get to the point where you treat everybody equally. So that if you're talking to the president of your country or some celebrity or superstar, you don't get all shaken up when you're around them and all, but you just treat them like a average person that you would, just like you would treat anybody else. Or if you're interacting with somebody who others might consider to be below you, that you don't think of yourself as being above them and you're talking down to them, but you just treat them all equally. So while other people might have conceit and they might try to put themselves above you, you don't allow your mind to do that. You stay humble. And while other people might come at you with ego or arrogance or hostility because of that, you can just ignore it, or you can just move beyond it, or you can just smile, or whatever it is. There's all different kinds of ways to handle these kinds of things, but you don't allow your mind to ever think that you're above people or below people. But then there's ways to train the mind to do that, like which we talked about in chapter 16. I gave you guys some detailed teachings of how to train your mind to not have conceit. And then that's a consistent ongoing thing that you need to do to gradually wear away the ego so that it's no longer there. It slowly dissolves over time. And then more and more, when you're functioning around certain beings, you're always viewing yourself as equal to other people. So even though others are going to have conceit and ego and try to put themselves above or below you, you don't allow your mind to think that way. Okay. And then I see a question here from EY. He says, Teacher David, in other schools of Buddhism, there are 6 realms of existence, gods and demigods, asaras. Would you clarify on this? So if you've studied teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might see anywhere from 6 realms to 9 realms to 32 realms. There's lots of different things out there that people will talk about. But these are all modifications to the teachings that people made after the death of the Buddha. If you go back to the original source teachings, which is the Pali Canon, you can see that the Buddha only taught 5 realms of existence, and he taught these 5 that I'm sharing here. And then, based on your experiences, you're not believing these 5 realms, you can actually potentially experience beings in these 5 realms. So you can independently confirm that, yes, the human realm is 100% the truth because you're living in the human realm and you know that that's the truth. You can also confirm the animal realm. You know that that's 100% the truth because you've seen animals. If you've ever interacted or seen hell beings, then you'll know that. If you've ever had interactions with afflicted spirits or heavenly beings, then you know that those are the truth. So those are the 5 realms that the Buddha taught. You can see it in the original source teachings, but you don't believe it. You can independently confirm it. And what I'm sharing with you and why I'm sharing it with you at this point, 6 months into this program, is that if you do come in contact with these beings, then you'll know what you're experiencing. And you can, through your own direct experience, know that this is the truth. Where the things that people have changed and modified, those things you're never going to be able to confirm, like a demigod. Have you ever met a demigod? No. I've never seen a demigod. I don't even know that I know what a demigod is. These things don't exist. But I've experienced interaction with beings in the heavenly realm, the human realm, the afflicted spirits realm, the animal realm, and the hell realm. And if you've observed your past lives, you might even observe your past existences in these different realms, which some people experience as well. So you'll see different people saying different things about these different realms, but these are all modifications and changes. Because of the universal truth of impermanence, people modified and changed the teachings of the Buddha. But what I encourage people to do is go back to his original source teachings, because that's where you'll see what he truly taught. And then you don't believe it, you can independently confirm it for yourself. Let me see if we have any questions on Facebook or YouTube. Let's see, it looks like we have a question here coming in on YouTube. It says from Jeff, teacher, what are some of the early indicators that craving or anger is rising in us? Is there a bodily sensation we can look out for? Yes, when you have craving, that's going to produce pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. So there's going to be a bodily sensation associated with that before any conditioned feeling arises, not just anger, but all conditioned feelings. And each person's going to be a little bit different. This is what you've got to clue into and you've got to see for yourself. So if you're doing breathing mindfulness meditation and becoming more and more aware of the mind and more aware of those bodily sensations, then you should start noticing before your mind gets conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant, there's going to be some bodily sensation. I can tell you with me, when I used to experience anger, it was like a tingling sensation from my feet all the way up to my face. I could sometimes feel tightening of the chest. I could feel heat in the face. I could sometimes feel pressure in the skull. Felt like I was going to explode. Those are some of the bodily sensations. When I used to experience shyness, I used to feel queasiness in the stomach. We say butterflies in the stomach. Even the happiness and excitement, there's usually tingling feelings in the shoulders coming up over the back of my neck and over into the head. When I used to experience conditioned pleasant feelings, that's what I would experience. And you could observe that the mind was about to get this pleasure, but there was this tingling sensation all over the body, almost like pins and needles, and it would come up the back of my head and over my skull. So for me, that's some of the bodily sensations that I would experience, but you're going to need to tune into that on your own so that you can discover for each one of these individual feelings, what are the bodily sensations that you're experiencing, because then you'll be able to identify it more and more closely. If you've ever experienced the pain in the neck or the shoulders, maybe this is stress, right? Or anxiety. Sometimes there's a little bit of a racingness, like the heart starts beating really, really fast. When there's anxiety maybe that's getting ready to come into the mind, you can feel almost this like uptick of the heart. These are the types of things that you can look out for, but you'll have to tune into that on your own to be able to see for your own mind what are the bodily sensations associated with these discontent feelings. I'm going to check Facebook, and I don't see any questions on Facebook. All right, so let me continue forward and share some more details with you guys about the cycle of rebirth and what you may experience as you're starting to awaken the mind, as you're starting to lift out some of this pollution of craving, anger, and ignorance. You might start noticing some things. Right now, depending on where you are in your practice, you might only have memories of your current life, in your current existence. This is kind of like walking out on the street and you walk outside your house or you walk outside of your building and you look out and you can only see one street because you're only on this one street and you can only see what's happening on this one street. It's like you can only see what's happening in this life. But as you start training your mind and you start lifting this pollution out of the mind, it's like moving up to a higher vantage point because you're now having this higher consciousness because the mind is lifting out the pollution out of the mind and you're moving to this higher vantage point where now you can start potentially seeing all the different streets that are connecting to each other. You might even be able to see one town is connecting to another town if you're up on a high mountain looking over the actual mountain and looking down on the town. This is what the experience is like as you're starting to lift out the pollution of the mind. Whether it's in meditation or whether it's in your daily life, you can start having residual memories of your previous lives. If you've ever experienced deja vu, this is a residual memory bubbling up to the surface of the mind. That deja vu is an experience that you're having, a certain memory that you're having, that you know that you've done this thing before, but it hasn't been in this life. And these things can bubble up in the mind, just in your daily life as you're going about your daily activities. It can happen in meditation too, where you can have images and visual, certain stimulation of things that have happened in the past. You can potentially see past existences, people and places and things that you've done in those past existences. You might even see the cause of your death in those past existences and how you actually died or how you actually lived. And this is because the pollution of the mind is lifting and you're now moving to this higher vantage point, a higher consciousness. So now you're overlooking more and more of what you experienced over the totality of all these different existences. You're no longer just standing on one street looking at the one street. You have moved to this higher vantage point. So these are things that can happen. Don't feel like you're going crazy. Don't feel like there's anything wrong. If you experience something and you have a certain memory, you're not special. You don't have to run out and tell everybody about it. Just whatever you glean, whatever information that comes from that, that's just what you glean. If you need to reach out to me for help to process what you're experiencing, you can reach out to me and I'll help you. But by and large, it's just memories of your past lives that are bubbling up to the surface. What's happened in the past is in the past. Anything that's happened in the past, whether it's in this life or in a previous life, it's not going to necessarily help you get to enlightenment in this life. And what may or may not happen in the future, it's in the future. It hasn't happened yet. So all that really matters is the present moment. But when you observe past lives, it can surely be interesting. It can give you insight into certain things that you've experienced in this life. But not everybody who gets to enlightenment will experience the observing of past lives. Not everybody who gets to enlightenment is going to see past existences. So don't feel like this is something that you need to do or you're required to do, but just know that as you're lifting the pollution out of the mind, it's something that can occur. And it's not necessarily going to occur, but it can occur. So if it does occur, don't get shaken up by it. And it can happen over multiple situations. It's not necessarily going to happen just once and then done. It can happen over multiple situations. So now you'll understand what that is, and you don't need to be shaken up by that should that occur. So let's talk about the movement of the consciousness from the animal realm into the human realm. Whether you remember your past lives or not, I can share with you that every single one of us have had countless past lives in the past. The Buddha talks about it as we've had so many past lives that all the tears that we cried in all of our past existences is more volume than all the world sees. And he says all the blood that we've had in our previous existences is more water than all of the seas. And he says all the milk that we drank from our mother in those past existences is more volume than all the water of all the seas. So we've all had these countless existences in the past that we may or may not remember at this particular time. The vast majority of human beings that are coming into the human world are being reborn out of the animal realm, as I've mentioned. And this is why our mind tends to be conditioned by our animal existences and our conditioning of our mind from those animal existences. We have a lot of the same traits and same qualities of mind in the human realm as we once experienced in the animal realm. Things like a lack of memory. We tend to have, in the unenlightened state, a lack of memory, just like most animals. We tend to work and function best in a praise and reward environment. So if you're training an animal, you will usually use a praise and reward system in order to get that animal to perform a certain behavior regularly. And as human beings, we have the same thing. We put forth a certain amount of effort. Maybe we're learning, and then we get a diploma, or we get a certificate, or we get some kind of reward, and we really feel good about that. And then that motivates us to do more and continue with that behavior. So we tend to function in this praise and reward system very much like an animal would, that we function very well in that way. We also learn from a similar pack of species. So just like a wolf is born and then it learns how to be a wolf from other wolves, or an elephant is born and it learns how to be an elephant from other elephants, as human beings, as we're born into this world, we learn how to be human beings from other human beings. So if you are surrounded by a lot of negativity, or if you were born into a very hostile or aggressive family, or a very degrading or diminishing family, your mind's going to tend to conform to that because that's what you grew up with. Whereas if you were born maybe into a more loving or more wholesome family, then your mind's going to tend to conform to that. So this is why the Buddha teaches that it's wise to have wholesome people around you, because your mind's going to tend to conform to whatever's going on around you with other human beings. There's certain instinctive behaviors that we have as human beings, and there's certain learned behaviors that we have as human beings. And this is the same in the animal realm. There's certain instinctive behaviors that they have, and there's certain learned behaviors. So like, for example, when we're first born, an instinctive behavior is right away we want milk from our mother. We want to fill up our stomach with some milk. We're looking for milk from somewhere, right? That's an instinctive thing that we know that we need some food to come into this body. But then we learn certain things from the adults around us and the people around us. If the adults around us are bitter, harsh, and hostile, degrading, diminishing, then we will tend to conform to that because that's what we grew up in. But if we're around people that are more loving and kind and generous and friendly and polite and respectful, then we will tend to be that way. So it's very wise to ensure that you choose to be around people who are emulating the qualities that you would aspire to cultivate. This is why a community of people who are learning the teachings of the Buddha will tend to build relationships with each other. That you have people that are on this path that are looking to cultivate wisdom and make wholesome decisions that lead to wholesome results, and they're interested in being polite, kind, friendly, respectful to others. So people will tend to make friends amongst the community of Buddhist practitioners that they're learning within. And this is really helpful to you because if you see a certain person in your community of practitioners that is using right speech really well and you're interacting with this person, you're like, oh, I really like how Max talks so polite and friendly. I think I would like to emulate some of what Max is doing. Or I really like how Chrissy is such a caring mother and she cares for her children so nicely. I would like to try to emulate some of that. So you can pick up the various wholesome qualities that you see amongst the people that you're around, and you can start to kind of assimilate this into your life practice. Whereas if you're around people who are making unwise decisions and doing unwholesome things, you're going to tend to do those kinds of things too. So without judging people, of putting yourself above or below them, but instead just making wise decisions to choose to have wholesome people and people who are wise around you, you will tend to learn from that pack of like species, and you will tend to assimilate the conduct and the behavior and the way of being based on who you have around you. And then there's times where in the unenlightened state, we are maybe aggressive or hostile or bitter or harsh. And we even have words and phrases in the English language that we use to talk about this. We might say, oh, you're acting like an animal, or you're fighting like cats and dogs, right? How many times have you heard that perhaps when we were growing up as children? You're fighting like cats and dogs. Even though we're in the human realm, our mind has been conditioned to understand the animal realm and what happens in the animal realm. And we made these phrases and we create these phrases because when we see someone acting like an animal, then we say perhaps, oh, you're acting like an animal. Or if we see two people fighting like cats and dogs, we might say you're fighting like cats and dogs. But what you would like to do is, like I've mentioned, move more and more to this human existence and becoming a better and better human being. Humans are fascinated with animals. We have animals as pets. We use animals for work. We have animal prints on our clothing. We tend to wear clothing that have animal prints on them. We're so fascinated with animals, we even have stuffed animals. As children, we grow up with all these stuffed animals. We go to zoos, we have scientists that study animals. As human beings, even though we're in the human realm, because of our mind having experienced so many existences in the animal realm, we're fascinated with animals. And we have this fascination, almost an unquenchable thirst to be around animals and look at animals and understand animals, have animal prints, stuffed animals. We have these phrases that we use. You're acting like an animal. You're fighting like cats and dogs. This is all because of our conditioning from our experiences in our animal existences. The animal consciousness is preoccupied with craving, anger, and ignorance, and the ego and the protection of a self. And so is the unenlightened mind in the human state. This human consciousness is functioning very much like an animal until we train it otherwise. So when you understand what craving, anger, and ignorance is, and the hostility and the aggression and the bitterness, and you can start realizing, oh my goodness, I'm acting like an animal here. But here I am in the human realm. Let me be a better human being. Let me start being more loving and kind and compassionate and friendly and respectful. That's what you can evolve to as you're moving out of this animal realm, now that you're in this human realm, your mind has been conditioned to function like an animal because of these countless animal existences. But now that you're in the human realm, what you would like to do is identify those animalistic behaviors and now realize that what you're trying to do is become a better and better human being and leave behind these animal behaviors. Shed that out of your life. And this can help you, that as you see that you're acting like an animal, that this is something that you can shed and leave behind, and realize that that's important work to do to evolve your consciousness away from your animal existences and becoming a better and better human being. And then the last thing that I'll share with you guys before I open up to any questions that you guys have, or the things that I have here, is that that's what this path to enlightenment is all about, is leaving behind these animal consciousness and moving further and further into your human consciousness. Even though you're in the human realm now and you have a human consciousness and you have the ability to develop it to be more and more of a human consciousness, the mind is going to function in some cases like an animal consciousness because it's been conditioned that way. If you do nothing about it, you'll ultimately be reborn back down into the lower realms. But if you become a better and better human being, you'll either get to enlightenment and escape this whole cycle of rebirth, or if you improve your consciousness and there still isn't enlightened yet, you'll either come back into the human realm to have more opportunity to improve upon your consciousness, or you'll be reborn into the heavenly realm with an opportunity to get to enlightenment there. So all of these difficulties and struggles that you're experiencing, it's just because of a lack of wisdom. And when we are in the animal existences, we couldn't cultivate our wisdom. We didn't have the ability to sit in a class like this as a dog or a cat or a snake or a squirrel and learn the Four Noble Truths, or learn the Eightfold Path, or learn the 5 precepts, or all these other teachings. We didn't have the ability in the animal realm to cultivate our consciousness to that degree. But now in the human realm, we do have this ability that we can get to enlightenment and escape this whole cycle of rebirth by gaining more wisdom and by training our mind and evolving to become more and more human, to experience a better existence and learn how to peacefully coexist with other humans. That's where the real work is learning how to do that and identifying these animal behaviors and leaving those behind and shedding those so that we can become a better and better human. Even the condition of our planet and the things that we see around us, whether we have pollution or we have certain difficulties with murders or serial killers or rapes or stealing and all these things, this is all coming from our animal consciousness. This is coming from the craving, anger, and ignorance. So if you have a certain amount of theft and murders and rapes and stealings and sexual misconduct going on in the world around you, these are human beings that don't understand that they're afflicted with craving, anger, and ignorance, the ego and protection of a self, that the mind is functioning very much like an animal, and they're continuing to act out on those animalistic behaviors and the conditioning of the mind. So a human being can walk towards the light and experience an improved existence. When we're in the darkness, our mind is polluted with craving, anger, and ignorance. We're functioning more and more like an animal. But by walking from the darkness towards the light, what we're doing is we're shedding the darkness, we're shedding the animal behaviors, and we're becoming more and more enlightened, and we're walking closer and closer to becoming a better and better human being. And that's what the path to enlightenment is all about, is getting rid of this conditioning of mind and getting to the point where the mind is unconditioned, where it's no longer affected by the conditioning of craving, anger, and ignorance. It's no longer affected by the conditioning of our animal instincts and our animal behaviors that we once had over multiple existences. That we can get to a point where the mind's been completely purified and it's been trained to get rid of these conditions of craving, anger, and ignorance. And now this brightness and this radiance of the enlightened mind can shine through. One of the ways that we talk about enlightenment is we talk about attaining enlightenment, as if it's something that you don't have and you need to attain it. And this is one way to think about enlightenment. But another way to think about enlightenment that you might like a lot better, particularly if you have craving for enlightenment, is you can think about it as your mind is already enlightened. But you have these pollutions that are hindering you from being able to experience the qualities of the enlightened mind. So if the mind is already enlightened and you've got this pollution that's hindering you from being able to experience the brightness and the radiance and the peace and the joy of the enlightened mind, you just need to get rid of these pollutions so that the enlightened mind can shine through more and more. And that's essentially what you're doing when I'm talking about shedding the animal behaviors, is you're unconditioning the mind, you're purifying the mind, you're training the mind to get rid of the conditions that are hindering you from being able to experience the brightness and the radiance and the peace and the joy. So if you like to think about it as if your mind is already enlightened and you've got these pollutions in there that you got to get rid of, that's one way to think about it. And that can help you if you're having craving for enlightenment, because oftentimes if there's something you don't have and you need to attain it, sometimes the mind chases after it. But if you can think about it as you already got it, the mind is already enlightened, you just got these pollutions from these past existences that are hindering you from being able to experience the qualities of the enlightened mind. Now you just got to get rid of those conditions so that the enlightened mind can shine through more and more and more. And this might be a better way for you to think about it. So this is everything that I have to share with you guys today about this particular topic. I can go into more detail in any particular area that you guys would like to talk about, because remember, I just teach at a certain level of detail and then I wait for you guys to penetrate deeper and let me know what else that you guys would like to talk about that's deeper than what I've just shared with you. So if you'd like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions or follow-up questions that you like. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere, so you guys must not have anything that you would like to ask. So what I'll do then is just thank all of you guys for attending the class. Thank you for understanding the beginning with a little bit of technical challenges. I appreciate all your time and effort and dedication to learning and practicing these teachings. Remember that on Wednesdays, we come together to meditate together, so you're always welcome to join on Wednesdays. This Wednesday, we're going to be doing breathing mindfulness meditation together. And if you can't make it on Wednesdays, those classes are recorded. You can watch the replay on Facebook, YouTube, or on the podcast. And then on next Sunday, we're going to be in chapter 21, which is the next part of this book. This particular chapter is all about the planet and not causing harm to the planet. We're going to do this class a bit differently than what I normally do classes. So we're going to have more of a group discussion as opposed to me presenting certain things to you, because if you read the book on chapter 21, you'll understand what I'm sharing there as part of the teaching. But what I'd like to do on that particular class session, what I typically do is have us come together and have a group discussion, an interactive discussion. So if you log into Zoom, we'll be able to all have a nice conversation together. If you guys are in Facebook or YouTube, you can still participate in the discussion. But if you'd like to take an opportunity to come into Zoom, this will be a great opportunity next week, because then we can all conversate as a community and have a nice discussion around the health of the planet and sharing certain things that we practice in order to make wiser decisions about how we interact with the planet. Because as you move to this higher consciousness, if you're going to get to enlightenment and you actually get to enlightenment, you're not coming back to this planet ever again, but there's going to be other beings that need the resources of this planet. But if you don't get to enlightenment, you're going to be constantly reborn, coming back into this planet over and over and over again. And if we are continuing to cause difficulties on the planet, then we're going to continue to experience those challenges with our environment. So any being that's going to move to this higher consciousness is going to need to start paying attention to how you interact with the planet, because one of the things that we're learning is about not causing harm. And one of the things that we could cause harm to is not only other beings, but to our planet as well. So this is a great time for us to come together and talk and share some ideas of how we choose to interact with the planet in a more loving and kind way. So we'll have a group discussion on that next week. So thank you all for joining for today's class. We'll see you guys in one of these future classes. Have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Sawadee krap.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To provide support for this podcast, visit patreon.com/support Buddha. To access more teachings, visit buddhadailywisdom.com. There, you will discover a full range of courses, retreats, and online resources to assist you on the path to enlightenment. Remember to establish a daily, consistent meditation practice, along with learning and practicing these teachings. A well-developed meditation practice is the foundation in which to train the mind to attain enlightenment.